So in this video, we're going to take a look at functions and relations. So first of all, a relation is something that happens in every time, place, in society, and whatnot. So let's take a look at what I have here, for example. A relation is for every element in a domain. We're going to call that the inputs, for example. And then our range is going to be the output. For our domain, that's going to be our independent variable. Okay, whatever you use here, it could be whatever. But your output, that's what's called a dependent variable. Okay, that's going to depend on what's happening over here in the inputs. So if we look at, for example, an input, the time of day, 6:30 a.m., that's when I woke up. Okay, at 7:15 a.m., well, that's when I ate breakfast. Now at 8:30 a.m., I'm going to do two different things. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and pat my head, and I'm going to rub my stomach. Oh, so that's an interesting thing. I'm going to rub my stomach and pat my head. Now, question is this. Do I have what's called a function? It is a relation, but is it also a function? Well, that's an interesting question. There are different explanations of functions out there. For every element in the input, there needs to be exactly one output. That's one definition of a function. I always like to just really put this thing in bare bones type thing. So I'm going to say Dr. Moulton's definition of a function. I'm going to call that. Okay, this is going to be really, really watered down, okay? I'm going to say abbreviated. So I shouldn't have said watered down. I'm going to say abbreviated. I'm really condensing this thing. So I'm going to say each element in the domain gets used once. So I'm just going to say domain gets used once. Okay? My problem is here. Here's my domain. At this domain, at 8:30 a.m., I've got to go in two directions. Right now, that's not a function. Okay? Not a function. Because my domain, it's getting used twice, see? Now, if I did this and took out rubbing my head and say all I did at this point in time was patting my head. Did I say rubbing my head? I meant to say rubbing my stomach, but you get the point. Okay? Now that is going to be a function. Because each element in my domain gets used once. Okay? I don't really care what's going on in the range. In fact, I can have an outlier right here. I can just say I drove to work. Okay, and I don't have a time that's going to that. That's okay, it's still a function. Okay, so I have an extra output, an extra range component there. As long as each element in my domain gets used once, we've got a function. Okay, now let's take a look over here. I've got a relation over here. And let's find out whether this is going to be a function or not. Well, first of all, let's find the domain. Well, the domain's all your inputs, right? So, it's the number 1, 4, 7, and 9. Because we're looking at x, y coordinates here, right? So I'm just going to pick every single one of my x coordinates, and that's going to be something inside the domain. The domain. As for the range, for that, think you can get this one? Yeah. it's going to be all the y values. So the 2, the 6, the 8, and then I got 2 again. So really, I don't need to write it twice. As long as I've got it represented, I've got it. So there's my range. Now, is this relation a function? Remember what to look for? The inputs. In this case, the inputs are going to be the x values, okay? Are these x values all getting used once? Yeah, they are. So it's going to be a function. Now, if I wanted this to not be a function, all I had to do would have been to change this 9 to, say, 7. Okay, so that would have been gone. And then I would have said not a function, right? Because I've got my x-coordinate of 7 showing up twice. Which brings us to this guy over here. Is this graph a function, first of all? Okay, it's not going to be a function because it's going to fail this thing called a vertical line test. What a vertical line test is this. If you draw a vertical line on your graph, and at any point on this graph it crosses the graph more than once, then it's not going to be a function. Now, let's go ahead and find the domain, though, of this graph. So for the domain, it's going to be your x values read left to right, okay? X values read left to right. So, smallest x value looks like it's occurring here at -2. And your biggest x value looks like it's occurring here at 5. So we're going to write this in interval notation, -2 to 5. Okay. As for the range, well, that's going to be the y values read bottom to top. So our smallest y value, it looks like it's happening here at -1. And the biggest y value is happening here at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So, -1 to 5. Oh, you know what? This is interval notation. I need to be including these, don't I? So that's -1 with a bracket to 5 with a bracket. And this guy here, it should be -2 with a bracket to 5 with a bracket. Because it's actually hitting these points, right? If this circular, oval, whatever you want to call it, shape was dashed rather than solid, then I would have had parentheses. But I do want to have brackets on these. So that is our discussion on domains, ranges, relations, and functions. A little bit of a longer video, but I think it gets the job done.